Police department, anybody inside? Answer up, do it now.
Like many cities in the US, Kansas City has two stories to tell.
We want the same chance. We want the same opportunities for a job.
There's the story about the gleaming, pretty neighborhoods.
When you talk to people in Kansas City, you hear a lot about the truce divide.
A land of opportunity that's mostly white. And then there's the story about the east side of town, home to the black community.
Well, there's not a whole lot of people living around here, so many empty houses.
The disinvestment, the poverty, the violence.
Dove in on my floor, anticipating that the glass was going to start breaking in the house or something.
Shootings and homicides, young black men killing each other.
They're doing all day in the penitentiary, or they in the dirt, dead.
This is the real story of Kansas City. It's the story of modern America. Its biggest story, its biggest shame.
You do not come on this property to steal, to break in.
In this film, you'll see what it's like to live on the east side of town. How brave people here are fighting back. How the police are trying something new to build bridges with the community. And how City Hall is taking on its critics.
139.
Everybody says action. Nobody has an answer. If anybody had an answer to that question, you don't think it would already be being used?
One Monday in June, and a community gathers to mourn another murder victim. 3-year-old Amorien Nassel Hale was asleep in his bed when the bullet struck his house.
Well, another baby was murdered. 3 years old, Amarian. And, you know, it was another senseless shooting.
This is a community ravaged by violence. In 2015, as the city's murder rate soared once again, nearly 3/4 of the homicide victims were black. Of the 7 children murdered, 6 were black.
If you look at the 50s and 60s, 70s, the black community, you know, people keep talking about it takes a village. We were a village then. Now, it's 2 things going on. Either you don't have anybody that live next door to you, or you don't know who they are.
This is something you'll find across America, a segregated black community. In Kansas City, the area was carved out decades ago by the racist policies of the real estate industry, the school district, and the Federal Housing Administration. Troost Avenue marks the boundary, and the blue dots show where the black community lives. According to KCPD, 3/4 of Kansas City's violent crimes occur in one area. In 2010, the Carter family chose to move to the east side of town. They knew the community here was fractured, and they wanted to help rebuild it. Then on a winter's evening, 4 years later, a gun battle broke out round the corner.
All of a sudden, I started hearing gunshots, a bunch of them, really, really close. So it was coming from this direction. I just basically threw the door open and ended up kind of baseball sliding into the floor.
A short time afterwards, Donald's wife, Kristen, arrived home and went upstairs to check on their 2 children, Lainey and Miles.
So I come inside, and I somehow ended up looking up, and there is a massive bullet hole in the wall.
The bullet had passed into the house. Lainey's bedroom was just a few feet away from its entry point.
I can remember walking into the room to check on Lainey, and you can't see her until you walk around. It was a bit unnerving, not knowing if she was okay or not.
The bullet had lodged in an air vent in the ceiling. The Carters have grown used to the violence in their area of the city.
Not a bullet coming through your house, but drive-by shootings, murders, drugs, domestic disputes on the lawn, people cussing at their little 3-year-old babies about things. This is our normal. It is. This is our normal.
This is their normal. In 2014, according to police data, there were nearly 90 violent crimes within a 3-block radius of their home. That's homicide, rape, robbery, and assaults. But the Carters aren't prepared to move out and abandon their neighbors.
What do the people do who can't leave, okay? What do the people do who can't just get up and try to go somewhere else and do something else? How do they get to live in a community?
The gun battle was fought here, round the corner from their house. those involved haven't been caught. On the ground, officers found bullet casings for 7.62 caliber rounds. That's larger than the standard size issued to United States soldiers. Determined to tackle the violent crime in Kansas City are the 1,300 or so officers of KCPD.
Our day squad, they were watching one of our targets, and they got into a car chase, then they bailed, got in a foot chase.
The man they were chasing has run into this house, past the terrified owner.
We've got some SWAT guys inside searching the house now.
He could be armed and dangerous. SWAT find him hiding in the basement, and an arrest is made before anyone is hurt. You may think this was a successful outcome for KCPD, and of course, to an extent, it was. But there's a new approach in town. This police unit is determined to make fewer arrests. From its start in 2012, it was headed up by Major Joe McHale.
If I go out and arrest somebody at 17 for a felony, what does that do to them for the rest of their life? They can't get a job. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. So as a police department, you kind of build your own problem.
It's moved on from the zero-tolerance approach parts of the black community saw in the 1990s.
We flooded that area with police resources. Did it build community trust? Did it break the cycle of violence for the people in the community? No.
This is the headquarters of Kansas City's No Violence Alliance, or KC Nova. Joe's team has been given office space by the Jackson County prosecutors. The alliance includes other law enforcement agencies, academics, and City Hall. KC Nova doesn't just want to react to the violence, it wants to get in front of it.
It's different in that we're trying to prevent violent crime before it occurs, but in a focused deterrence model, that's the goal.
That's right. They want to stop the crime from happening in the first place. In other words, they want to keep young men such as Jerome away from the violence.
So I got put in a foul, and that's why I'm sitting here today, you know, trying to get my life on a better path for real.
Jerome used to be a member of a gang called the 51st Street Crips. It was a life with only short-term prospects.
At any second, somebody can slide through and start shooting at you, you get killed, or you can get picked up and get sentenced to life in prison or something. That's life on the edge right there. You're living for the moment.
Research shows that those in these gangs are more likely to be killed than the US soldiers deployed to the wars in Iraq or Afghanistan. In order for the Alliance to understand these groups, it needs to know who knows whom. The names and contacts of around 1,000 people were shared by the police with academics at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, who turn the data into sociograms. Police resources can then be directed at those with the most contacts.
Have you heard of the NOVA program yet? Have a good day.
The message delivered is that we're watching you in your group, and you should tell the others that we're going to come after the next group that kills someone.
One way or another, we're going to stop the violence, whether they choose to do it or whether it's put in our hands.
But the message isn't just a threat of arrest. The men are also offered the help of client advocates, and they're given an invitation to a call-in.
This card here is actually his invitation. It's letting him know that Nova would really like to talk to him and explain to him what we have to offer him.
The call-ins take place every 3 months. They provide the Alliance with a chance to talk to the young men directly. These are the names on Joe's sociograms. They hear from the mayor, law enforcement, and the community. A stark warning is delivered.
In jail, you the one don't do me no good because I can't help you either. A 3-year-old baby was killed the other day. 3 years old. What are we coming to here in Kansas City?
But a helping hand is also offered.
It's a process to get away from it. If you want help, we're going to give it to you.
KC Nova recognizes that an effective way to deter crime is to equip these young men with the skills they need to get a regular job. For Jerome, the offer of help is not something he's used to.
I do really feel like this is the first time I'm getting offered help because, you know, I'm staying away from the streets. They give me the resources that I need in a positive manner.
His childhood east of Troost wasn't an easy one.
it was rough. And it was like basically survival of the fittest for real. And it just continued on.
His father was in prison, and his mother had to work full time. He couldn't resist the streets.
I first seen somebody get robbed probably when I was like 14 years old. And I was scared, but at the same time, I was curious.
At the age of 17, Jerome was given a 7-year sentence for robbery.
I don't blame nobody but myself for the path that I went down. I chose to go down that path. I said, yeah, come on, let's go.
Jerome has turned his back on the violence and crime, and he's building a new life with the help of Andre, a client advocate. Some of Andre's clients have shared with him why they turned to crime in the first place, and he questions how much free will was involved.
For some of our clients, the lifestyle that they lead isn't necessarily a choice. Their world isn't as broad as what you or I may see.
Police department, anybody's in there, answer up.
Jerome believes there's a separate city within our city, one with its own government and courts.